Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone for the Sunday morning program on Science of Self-Realization. Before we begin our session, let's offer our prayers to Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandrodaya Ki Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are going to continue our discussions on a very interesting topic known as superconsciousness. The previous session, so this is the topic which we have discussed to some extent in the previous week. Today we will continue and conclude this session. All these discussions are happening by the inspiration of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, who is the worldwide Hare Krishna movement founder Acharya, Iskcon movement's founder Acharya, who very mercifully has given us all the teachings, such a simplistic way that we can read them, understand them, and follow them in our life day to day. We owe a great sense of gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for his great contribution. So in the previous session, we discussed what is the real yoga system and what are its prerequisites. Right? Generally, people understand yoga in the modern day context as something which you can do some exercises or some gymnastics or some breathing exercises. That's what people generally know as yoga. But the Vedic literatures, especially Bhagavad Gita, tells us that yoga doesn't simply mean doing some exercises or some gymnastics. Rather, yoga there are so many varieties of yogas. One of the yogas which Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita is called Sankhya Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, wherein there are 8 different stages of performance of this particular yoga system. And one of the steps or one of the limbs of this yoga is called asana, or the exercises which people do, yogasana, or the pranayama. Like this, there's one more pranayama is one more step, breathing exercise. All these are meant to basically control the mind and the senses, so that the mind and senses can be fixed on Supreme Lord Krishna. Basically, yoga means any authentic process, authorized process, which will help you to connect to Krishna. That is the purpose. That is the meaning of yoga. Yoga means connecting, linking. So the real yoga is that authentic yoga system, which will help you to connect yourself with the Supreme Lord through an authentic process. Because right now people simply imagine a process and they're thinking that they're doing something. And they think doing yoga means to take care of your health or to cure some ailments you have, disease you have. That is not the purpose of yoga. The purpose of yoga is to awaken your actual connection with Krishna through a process. Right? That is the meaning of real yoga. So modern day so-called yoga is simply, you can say, it's a mockery. It is not actually giving any spiritual benefit to people in one sense, which people think that, oh, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. No. Basically, the real yoga is what described in Bhagavad Gita. And further, Krishna explains very practical yoga in Kali Yuga. It's called Bhakti Yoga, which we will discuss more in today's session. With regard to the Ashtanga Yoga or the Sankhya Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita there are a lot of prerequisites. One of the important prerequisites is that you have to go to a place which is without any congestion. Rather, should be a very calm place. So in that place, you are not supposed to have any material connections with people, which means you need to go to a sacred place which is very calm and quiet. Where do you find such a place in the modern day context, where people are all so busy in their day-to-day activities, bustling with so much of actions everywhere? So where do you find such things? Not easy, right? So this is the first requirement. And secondly, Lord Krishna says that when you go there, you have to find a suitable place to sit. The place should be not too high, not too low, and you should put a deer skin on that, in that particular seat, and you should sit straight, and you have to focus your eyes on the tip of the nose. And most importantly, Krishna also explains that the prerequisite is that you have to follow what is known as celibacy or brahmacharya. So like this, many conditions are there, prerequisites are there. It is what, whereas in the modern day context, you see, where is the possibility of you going to a place which is totally without any congestion or a sacred place? You're all busy in the cities. And also, where is the question of practicing celibacy? So the so-called yoga systems, yoga societies, which are promoting yoga, they only say you can do anything, you can eat anything, you can drink anything, you can do anything, and you can also perform yoga. This is actually not the right way of performing yoga, as at least according to Bhagavad Gita. So the understanding of yoga is basically to see that through an authentic process, we revive our connection with Krishna. He is forgotten right now. That is the process. Right? Whereas the modern day so-called yoga societies or yoga systems which people follow doesn't have this purpose at all. And we also understood what is individual soul and what is super soul. The whole purpose of yoga system is to connect us as individual souls to super soul, who is Lord Krishna. Krishna is one of the plenary expansion. Means Lord Krishna as Supreme Personality, he is residing in everybody's heart as super soul. And this super soul is all pervading. Your heart, my heart, everybody's heart, Lord Krishna is sitting as Paramatma or super soul. Not only this, he's also sitting in every atom, because of which the whole world is going on. This is Paramatma. Whereas we are confined to this body only. Right? So this is the difference. So we also understood the individual soul, because right now it is going on with different desires to enjoy in the material world. So it's taking different bodies. And the super soul is accompanying the individual soul unless and until the individual soul realizes this way of wandering here and there by so many desires, material desires, is not conducive. I have to return back to my original place where I actually belong to. Right? This is what the understanding scriptures give us, various scriptures give us. Next, we also understood what is the role of super soul in our life. Why is Lord Krishna sitting as Paramatma in our hearts? Very nicely in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that Paramatma is sitting as an overseer, Upadrishta, and also as a sanctioner, Anumanta. So overseer and sanctioner, why he has to oversee? Because we are intimately connected with Lord Krishna. We have forgotten Krishna. So Krishna is sitting with us just to remind us that we are connected with him. And in every way, he's trying to again direct us, that you come back to me. That is the purpose. For that reason, he's trying to convince you in different ways through various spiritual activities, through the various spiritual literatures, which is all available. So Lord is trying his best He's accompanying us as a friend. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned, Lord is more anxious than us to take us back to spiritual world. But we are not so anxious. So, if we can somehow understand this aspect, that Lord is very anxious for us to go back. It's like your children or your child has gone out somewhere. You'll be anxious if the child doesn't come on time back to home. Likewise, Lord is very anxious. He's accompanying us as Paramatma, and He's giving us necessary intelligence to come back, provided we want to, we desire to. Lord is respecting our individual free will. All of us have a free will. So as long as we desire that I want to go back to Krishna, I want to come back to Krishna, Lord is always accompanying you and providing all facilities for you. Bhagavad Gita also says, Mattaha smrutir jnanam apohanam cha. From me comes knowledge, from me comes remembrance, and from me come also forgetfulness. Whatever psychic activities we're going through in our life is all coming from Paramatma. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishta. Krishna says, and I am sitting as Paramatma in your heart and guiding you in this way. This is how Paramatma is very active in our life. He knows every desire of ours, and He's waiting when we will turn our face towards Paramatma and go back to Him. That is the only purpose of this whole human life. Because we are not going back to Him, or rather we are not turning our face towards Him, He is very patiently, compassionately waiting for us. This is what Bhagavad Gita is teaching us. The whole Bhagavad Gita is telling us that because we are not anxious to go back to Godhead, rather go back to Krishna again. No, Krishna is just providing whatever you are desiring and waiting. He's waiting for millions of lives. Right? So these are the various different wonderful aspects we understood in the previous session. Let's move forward in today's session with the important understanding of what is this Krishna consciousness? What is this Bhakti Yoga? We're talking about superconsciousness. The topic is superconsciousness, wherein we're trying to understand our individual consciousness is limited. Superconsciousness is all-pervading, and how to connect ourselves with the superconsciousness. So, just as the individual soul is present by his consciousness throughout the whole body, so the super soul or Paramatma is present throughout the whole creation by his superconsciousness. Very important understanding. We are limited to our own body and bodily awareness, right? Whereas super soul's way of functioning is because he's in everybody's heart, in everybody's body, even starting from an ant to elephant, even in the microbes, germs, bacteria, in everybody's body, Paramatma is there. So he knows everything about everybody. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Bhagavad Gita explains, this body is like a field of activity, kshetra. And we know this field of activity nicely, as much as possible. Whereas, I don't know about others' body. Whereas Paramatma, super soul, because he's in everybody's body, residing in everybody's body, he knows the details of every other living entity. Psychic activities of all the living entities, he knows. That's the understanding. So, this is the difference between individual consciousness and super consciousness. This super consciousness cannot be immediated by the individual soul who has limited awareness. In so many so-called yoga societies or spiritual organizations nowadays, this is what they're telling. Oh, now you have limited consciousness. Your consciousness can become super consciousness. Now you know something about yourself, you'll know everything about everybody. This is the way it is being advertised or promoted about so-called spiritual organizations which are simply trying to cheat people. Whereas, actually speaking, our consciousness is always limited. It is going to be like this constitutionally. We can never become super consciousness or super soul. Super soul's position is different. One of the Upanishads says, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. We are constitutionally, eternally situated like this. Chetana, as an individual Chetana, as a limited Chetana, our situation is that. And we have to be subordinate to the super consciousness. This is the understanding which Upanishads give us. Okay. So further, very nicely Prabhupada explains, I can understand what is going on within my limited body, but I cannot feel what is going on in another's body. Right? And this we have discussed just now, that I am just confined to the awareness about my body to some extent. But I cannot understand what is going on in another's body. Just like when you go to a doctor will ask you many, many aspects. So, okay, how are you feeling? What are you feeling? Where is the pain? If doctor was like Paramatma, he would have known everything. Without even asking you, he would have treated you. Right? So that is the point. So to understand that our consciousness is limited within my body. And I cannot feel what is going on in others' body. I am present all over my body by my consciousness. The very aspect of the soul's presence, the symptom of soul being present in the body means I am conscious, I am aware about different things going on in my body and the surroundings around me with regard to the pains and pleasures, heat and cold. But I am not present in any other's body by my consciousness. There is a difference between individual consciousness and super consciousness. However, the super soul or Paramatma, being present within everyone, is situated everywhere, is conscious of every existence. Very important point Srila Prabhupada is making, that Paramatma, super soul, is within everyone. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishta. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he is there in everybody's heart. And also everywhere. All pervading he is. Every atom is there. And is conscious of every existence. Just like I am conscious of my body, Krishna is conscious of every aspect in this material creation. It's important revelation, which if we properly understand, it's going to take us to a next level of spiritual understanding. The theory that the soul and super soul are one is not acceptable, because the individual soul's consciousness cannot act in super consciousness. This is the fallacy going on right now in the present day society. People are being cheated in the name of you can become God, or we are also God, but right now I'm in a different situation. Once I do meditation or some yoga system, I can become God. That is never possible. All these absurd statements are all not accepted in Bhagavad Gita and Vedic literatures. I remain as individual soul eternally. Whereas God's position, Krishna's position is supreme, Vibhu. And our position is Anu, small, very infinitesimal. That is the understanding which scriptures give us. This super consciousness can only be achieved by dovetailing individual consciousness with the super consciousness. And this dovetailing process is called surrender or Krishna consciousness. Right? So what is Krishna consciousness? When you understand that my position is very minute and subordinate, and I have to surrender or I have to subordinate myself to the supreme consciousness. This is called dovetailing process, or connecting where to subject ourselves to act as per the direction given by super soul. This is called surrender, surrendering process, or in a simple language, it is called Krishna consciousness. Right now, our consciousness is all dominating consciousness or lording consciousness. I will not surrender to anybody. Everybody has to follow me. This is called Maya consciousness. Everybody thinks like this in the material world. Everybody thinks I am the boss, I am the master. But actually, the fact is that nobody is master. Everybody is actually a servant. Under the false understanding, one person thinks, oh, I have become master, just like a madman or a person who is intoxicated. He may think, oh, I'm become the master of the whole universe. But it's only under the influence of some intoxicants or madness. Fact is that my position is always subordinate. Very simple example. You are going through, your body is going through changes of old age, subject to old age, disease, and one day you have to die. If you are master, why don't you stop this old age, disease, and death? You are forced, which means there is a superior energy, superior force working on you in every aspect, right? Just like today in Vrindavan, we are having rains. If you are so powerful, why you can stop the rain? No, which means there is a arrangement in the whole universe with regard to how things have to go on. Simply in illusion, if you start thinking, oh, this I can do, that I can do, it's all basically you are not in a sane understanding. That's the point. So very nicely Prabhupada explains, surrender means you understand your position that I am very insignificant, I'm very minute, and I have to subordinate, I have to subject myself to the dictation by super soul. That is called Krishna consciousness, or dovetailing ourselves with the super consciousness, or individual consciousness dovetailed with super consciousness. That is called Krishna consciousness, or surrender to Krishna. So how to awaken this aspect of Krishna consciousness, right? So right now, just now we have been discussing that yes, individually we are not supreme. There is a superior authority in this whole creation, and he has superior consciousness. We have to become Krishna conscious, or we have to dovetail ourselves with the super consciousness. That is what we have discussed so far. And how to awaken this? How to come to this stage? So from the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, we learn very clearly that Arjuna in the beginning did not want to fight with his relatives. Bhagavad Gita, if you study, from the beginning we see Arjuna was hesitant to fight because he was speaking from the bodily conception of life, or he was thinking, oh, if I fight, there will be a lot of other problems, and I'll be the cause of all these other problems, he was thinking. So he was hesitant to fight with his own people, with his own relatives. But after understanding the Bhagavad Gita, when he dovetailed his consciousness with super consciousness of Krishna, his consciousness was Krishna consciousness. A very important principle Srila Prabhupada is trying to tell us here. In the present context, we are trying to do things based on our own limited understanding, limited experience, limited situations, and we think this is the right thing to do. We never want to take direction from Krishna or advice from Krishna, right? Krishna has given Bhagavad Gita. He's sitting as Paramatma in our heart. He's ready to give us instructions. That's the reason he's sitting, which we discussed in the beginning of this session. Paramatma's role is that he's just waiting for us, that when I will turn my face towards Paramatma and listen to him. But we are not listening. We want to go on doing our own imagination, our own speculations, right? Our own concoctions. We are going on in this material world. That's the problem. So when Arjuna heard the whole Bhagavad Gita, and when the Krishna asked him at the end, have you understood what I have told you? Has your illusion gone? So Arjuna replied, yes, Krishna. My illusion is gone, nashta moha, and I have regained my memory. Smritirlabdhva. And Krishna, whatever you say, I will follow now. That is what a subordinate is supposed to do, right? You have a servant in your house. The servant is supposed to follow what you are telling him. And if the servant is not following what you're telling him, then He is not the right servant. Chandakya Pandita says, a servant who gives back answers and doesn't follow what the master is telling, he has to be rejected. Right? So like this, we have to understand that our situation is to be subordinate to Krishna. And Arjuna personally demonstrated this particular aspect in the Bhagavad Gita's whole episode, wherein he surrendered to Krishna and told, whatever you say, I'm going to follow. This is called Krishna consciousness. He became Krishna conscious. A person in full Krishna consciousness acts with the dictation of Krishna, and Arjuna agreed to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. The very same Arjuna, who in the beginning was not ready to fight, later on, he just followed whatever Krishna was telling. And because Krishna's desire was to fight, so Arjuna agreed that I'll fight. This is the way. So what is a subordinate supposed to do? He has to follow the superior authority only. He doesn't have to think or speculate or concoct about anything to do. The whole problem of our material life is we have been doing this thinking, concoction, speculation, and going on in the material world, life after life. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, somebody may ask, how do we get this direction? Prabhupada says, in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, the dictation of the Lord is received through this transparent medium of the spiritual master. Krishna has very nicely made a wonderful arrangement that when you are sincere that I want to follow the highest authority, because he's sitting as Paramatma in your heart, he will guide you to a specific personality who is Krishna's representative, who is appearing as spiritual master. It's like Prabhupada is that spiritual master who is available now through his teachings, through his institution. Right? So in the beginning, these instructions are coming, what to do, how to move forward in your life. Otherwise, left to ourselves, we are doing things on our own. Whatever way we want, we are going on in our life. So we have to dovetail, or we have to align ourselves with the direction given by superconsciousness or super soul. And that direction in the initial stage comes through a spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master, which means authorized spiritual master coming in the parampara. And Prabhupada has made it very simple for all of us. He has established this wonderful organization, worldwide organization called Iskcon, Hare Krishna movement, wherein all of us simply follow the instructions as being imparted in this Hare Krishna movement or Iskcon. You will follow all the, you're following Paramatma or super consciousness. It's a wonderful arrangement. Prabhupada's transcendental arrangement. So the beginning, this direction or dictation comes from the bona fide spiritual master and his institution. When one is sufficiently trained and acts with submissive faith and love for Krishna under the direction of bona fide spiritual master, the dovetailing process becomes more firm and accurate. It's a process. We have to subject ourselves. Right? Initially, you follow what the spiritual master is telling you. Srila Prabhupada is telling you. When your submission has enhanced, increased, and your love and faith for Krishna has enhanced, what happens? Then the process what you are following will become more and more mature. So Prabhupada is saying the dovetailing process, the surrendering process will become more firm and accurate. Then what happens? At that stage, Krishna will dictate from within. Lord is waiting. He has to, first of all, he's saying, first come here. First of all, you enter. When you enter, there's some directions given by spiritual master. When you want to, start following that. Then once you are seriously following, Paramatma is going to directly direct us, dictate us from within. From without, the devotee is held by spiritual master, the bona fide representative of Krishna, and from within, the Lord helps the devotee as Chaitya Guru, being seated within the heart of everyone. A very wonderful principle. So when you want to become serious in coming out of this whole material existence, of this cycle of birth and death, externally there is bona fide spiritual master, Guru, Who will help you? Srila Prabhupada will help us. And from within, Lord is sitting as one more Guru, as Chaitya Guru, sitting in the heart of everyone, and he will start guiding. So we have Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. That way we'll get the seed of bhakti by the combined mercy of Guru and Krishna. So with this understanding, Prabhupada explains now, okay, so what does actually the perfection in spiritual understanding means, or spiritual life means? So very nice understanding Prabhupada used about comparing what people think as material yogic perfection and what is actually spiritual perfection. What all yogic perfection people think is spiritual, it is not spiritual, it is material. Right? First step is that simply to understand that God is seated in everyone's heart is not perfection. One is that you understand, yes, Paramatma is there in everybody's heart. That is just a beginning, right? It is not perfection, it's just a beginning. Then one has to be acquainted with God from within and without, and thus act in Krishna consciousness. Which means, Paramatma is sitting in your heart, Paramatma also is in everybody's heart, Paramatma is in every aspect of creation. Yes, then you are familiar with this understanding and you start acting in that consciousness. The whole Bhagavad Gita's teachings is meant to train us how to act in that consciousness. And the spiritual master, Prabhupada, is training us how to act. So which means just Gyan is not enough. You have to also have practical activity, Vijnana. It's like in the laboratory, you may know that combining hydrogen, oxygen will give you water. So we have theory and should be practical also. Practical is what? Yes, mixing hydrogen, oxygen will give you water that should be tested in the laboratory. So likewise, you have to understand that I am not this body, I am spirit, soul, and you have to act on that spiritual plane. How to act, how to conduct ourselves is what Prabhupada teaches us very nicely. This is the highest perfectional stage for the human form of life and the topmost stage in all yoga systems. So very nicely Prabhupada is telling us. When you are acquainted with Super Soul, Krishna in your heart, acquainted means you know very well how Super Soul is acting in our life and how Super Soul is acting in everybody's lives. That way, have a proper relation with everything around you in the way Krishna wants us to have. Your dealings, your behavior, your actions, everything is in line with what Super Soul wants as per the Bhagavad Gita's directions, as per Srila Prabhupada's directions. Then you have come to the highest perfectional stage of human life. That is the topmost stage in all yoga systems. Whereas the yogis who don't have complete understanding of what is the way Super Soul is acting or how things have to do, they are only busy in achieving some type of perfections, yogic perfections. Right? So there are 8 kinds of super achievements which a yogi can have, a perfect yogi can have actually. What are they? One can become smaller than an atom. Anoraniya. Right? Atom is considered to be the smallest particle. Whereas even smaller than an atom you can become. That is the perfection you will have. Siddhi you can have. One can become bigger than a mountain. Right? Heavier than a mountain. Right? So like this, these are the perfections which a yogi can have. One can become lighter than air. Some of these perfections Hanumanji had. Many great yogis had. One can become heavier than any metal. Lighter than the air, heavier than the metal. Or one can achieve any material effects like he likes, like creating a planet, for example. Right? Any material sort of a wonder he can do. Or you can control like the Lord can. It's like sometimes some yogis achieve some perfection, they come out and start telling, start through hypnosis, they want to, control people. Whereas the position of controlling is only for the Lord. So you want to take Lord's position. That is wrong, actually. And one can freely travel anywhere within or beyond the universe. We have example of one sage by name Durvasa Muni, who could travel anywhere in this whole creation and beyond the creation also. That was his perfection. And one can also choose his own time and place of death and take rebirth wherever he may desire. Which means you can control, have this perfection of when I want to die, Ichcham Mrityu, and where I want to take birth. All that perfection is there. Whereas ordinarily, all of us are subjected to the laws of karma. And when death will happen, we're not in control. Where I have to be born next, I'm not in control. Whereas yoga perfection means is one of the 8 perfections. What we are seeing is, seems to be very wonderful. Prabhupada says, all these perfections are to one level fine. But the highest perfection is what, when one tries to the perfectional stage of receiving dictation from the Lord, one is above the stage of the material achievements above mentioned. All the different material achievements which we were discussing just now, right? Becoming lighter than the air or heavier than the metal, right? Smaller than the atom, becoming bigger than the mountain, or having the perfection of controlling other entities, or creating some universe, or having your own way of controlling the whole creation. This is all material perfections, they are called. The highest perfection is when Lord can directly give you dictations from within. Right now, Paramatma is not giving you direction, dictation. Why? Because you don't want to take. You're not surrendered to Krishna. Right? So it's like a servant or a person who wants to subordinate himself. He has to follow what the master is telling. The master words is not following, then he will no more be a servant for him. He'll be removed from his job. Likewise, he'll not be even given any instruction. Rather, he's no connection. Basically, right now, Paramatma is sitting in a very neutral position in our hearts, waiting and watching and sanctioning what we are desiring. But directly, the creations will come from Paramatma when we are completely abiding by the dictations as given by spiritual master Prabhupada, and we start following it, a stage will come wherein Paramatma will direct you every step. That is called as perfection in yoga. Right? So further, very nicely Prabhupada explains how in the present age, this aspect of getting that dictation from Krishna through the Ashtanga Yoga may not be easy, but there's one more practical way, because this Kali Yuga is called a very degraded age. Why it is degraded? Prabhupada explains. He says, the breathing exercise of the yoga system that is generally practiced is just the beginning of the system. Like I told you, the pranayama is one of the steps or one of the limbs of the eightfold yoga system called Ashtanga Yoga or Sankhya Yoga. And meditation on the super soul is again next step or a step forward. Dhyana, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana. Dhyana also is one step wherein you are completely meditating or focusing on super soul. But it is not perfection. Achievement of wonderful success is also only a step forward. Some perfections which we have just now listed, becoming lighter than the air, heavier than the mountain, like this, all these things, bigger than the mountain, all these things may be very wonderful from the materialistic point of view, but it has no spiritual significance as such, right? But to attain direct contact with the super soul and to take that dictation from him is the highest perfectional stage. This is the whole principle of any yoga system, right? Any material perfections or even controlling your senses through some breathing exercises or some other asanas, it is to one level, okay, it's only a step forward, but that is not the perfection or highest perfection. Highest perfection is when you attain direct contact with the super soul, to take direct and to take dictation from him from within. That is the highest perfectional stage. Very important principle being discussed here. The breathing exercises and meditational practices of yoga are very difficult in this age. The pranayama or dhyana practice of yoga is not practical for everybody, not easy for everybody. Commonly speaking, it is not at all possible. So Prabhupada says it's very difficult in this age of Kali. So in fact, this was not even difficult now. It was difficult 5,000 years ago. And Arjuna, when this yoga system he heard from Krishna, he rejected the proposal immediately. He told Krishna, I cannot follow this. And presently, our situation is even more difficult because age of Kali is a fallen age. It's a very degraded age. Why it is fallen? Because our lifespans are so limited. We are short-lived. Right? He said, Prayana Alpayushi. Our Ayu is very small. Earlier people used to live for a long time, but now 60, 70 years means, oh, we have lived enough. And as age is going on, lifespan is reducing day by day. And our understanding of spiritual life, spiritual knowledge is very, very slow. It's called manda. Very slow. We are not interested in spiritual understanding. And very unfortunate we are, because right now so many things going on around us. We're in a situation wherein anytime anything can happen. That is our situation. Very unfortunate. And even though you will be a little bit interested in spiritual life, self-realization, there are so many misleading people who want to misguide you by so many frauds. That is the situation. Manda, Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhagya. Manda Bhagya means we are unfortunate. And Sumanda Matayo means we are misguided like this. That is the problem. So, very nicely, Prabhupada explains, with the present situation of Kali Yuga like this, the other yoga systems of meditation or practice of the other very strict austerities not being very practical, Prabhupada recommends the simplest and easiest and the highest way of perfecting or performing yoga is called Bhakti Yoga. And what is Bhakti Yoga? Prabhupada explains. The only actual way to realization of the perfect stage of yoga is to follow the principles of the Bhagavad Gita as they were practiced by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, very nicely, who came 500 years ago, he has very nicely given us this process. And he himself demonstrated to all of us. This is the perfect way of performing yoga. Again, to remind all of you, yoga means any authentic process as given in the Vedic scriptures to awaken our connection with Krishna. Our connection with God is there, but it is forgotten now. To awaken or remind ourselves of the connection, that process is called yoga. So, for us in the present age, which is actually very unfortunate situation, very fallen age, not practical to follow the Dhyana Yoga or the Ashtanga Yoga or Jnana Yoga, process of speculation of knowledge about who you are, what you are, and go on like this for a long time. Not possible because of so many unfortunate situations. So very practical yoga system which all of us can follow is the Bhakti Yoga process, which was inaugurated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, specifically for this age, which is a very, very wonderful process which has all the elements of other yoga systems also in it. It is called the topmost yoga system, very easiest and simplest way. How it is so, we'll try to understand through the Prabhupada's further teachings. So Prabhupada says, this is the simplest and highest perfection of yoga practice. Lord Chaitanya practically demonstrated Krishna conscious yoga simply by chanting the holy names of Krishna as they are mentioned in the Vedanta, Srimad Bhagavatam, and many important Puranas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what did he do? He actually went on with what is known as propagating the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. He himself was chanting and he was telling everybody to chant. Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna. Right? You chant Hare Krishna, you do Sankirtan of Hare Krishna, do Bhajan of Krishna, like this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was telling. And all this is mentioned in authentic scriptures like Vedanta, Bhagavata, and many other important Puranas. The largest number of Indians follow this yoga practice, and in the United States and other countries also, it is gradually growing in many cities. Prabhupada is writing this essay at the time when already Prabhupada had established many centers across the world. So this practice of chanting of the holy names of God, known as Bhakti Yoga, is being practiced all over the world. What Prabhupada wants to tell us. And it is very easy and practical for this age, especially for those who are serious about success in yoga. Right? Our whole topic is how to connect our consciousness with superconsciousness, individual consciousness, superconsciousness. So this Bhakti Yoga, or the yoga of chanting the holy names of Krishna, is very easy and practical for everybody who are serious to awaken their dormant connection with Krishna, right? So that is the yoga process, basically. No other process can be successful in this age. This is what all the scriptures say. In Kali Yuga, no other process will be successful except this process of Bhakti Yoga. Now, Prabhupada gives one example of one of the yugas called Satya Yuga. The cycle of 4 yugas, right? The 4 yugas go in a cycle. Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. So in the Satya Yuga, it's called Golden Age, the meditational process with right earnest, in right earnest was possible in the Golden Age, Satya Yuga, because the people lived at that time for 100,000 years on average. The lifespan was more, the conditions were more favorable. So at that time, meditation was very practical. The next Yuga, the people's age reduced by 1/10. Right? They were living for 10,000 years. And that process of meditation was not practical. There was a process known as yajna, or performances, in the age of Treta Yuga. Then Dwapar Yuga, the age reduced by 1/10 more compared to Treta Yuga. The age was maximum 1,000 years. And the process recommended at that time was the elaborate temple worship. In Kali Yuga, the age being further reduced, maximum duration a human being will live is 100 years. That also is becoming reduced day by day. And this process of meditation or performance of huge elaborate yajnas or elaborate temple worship is not practical. Only practical way is Hari Kirtana, or chanting of the holy names of Krishna. So further, it is very nicely explained by Prabhupada. In the present age, however, if you want success in practical yoga, take to the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and feel for yourself how you are making progress. Right? Any yoga practice you're doing, you should see the progress in your practice of yoga. It's a progressive experience, right? So this is something which is practical and everybody is experiencing. When you're practicing yoga, the most important thing is to control your senses and mind. And Bhakti Yoga, you're able to do it so simply, in so wonderful way. So this is the demonstration. So you're able to see the results and you're able to experience what is the result. So Prabhupada is telling, why don't you adopt this process, simplest process? Further, Prabhupada says, one should know for himself how much is progressing in yoga practice. Right? That is because self-assessment is always important. In fact, Bhagavad Gita says, later on Prabhupada explains, that we can ourselves see how we are moving forward, how nicely all the other so-called material type of a instincts and drives which we had earlier is all going away, and we are becoming purified. So Prabhupada now defines Bhakti Yoga as described by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita for our understanding. In the Bhagavad Gita, this practice of Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness is described as Raja Vidya, the king of all erudition, king of all knowledge. It is said, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. This Krishna consciousness understanding is very confidential aspect of spiritual realization, the most confidential system of spiritual realization. Raja Guhyam. And Krishna also says it is Pavitram, the purest of all that is pure, the most purest. And it is very happily performed. And Avyayam, inexhaustible. Right? So Sukham, Avyayam. So those who have taken to this most sublime Bhakti Yoga system, this practice of devotional service in transcendental love of Krishna, can testify how they are nicely enjoying its happy and easy execution. So Raja Guhya, it is Pavitra and Susukham. These are all experiences which every practitioner can go through. So that is the point here. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitra Vidamuttamam, Pratyaksha Dharmyam. Pratyaksha means directly I can perceive all these things. But this is the highest type of understanding, the most confidential understanding which Vedic scriptures are giving us, purest, because you are coming in contact with or practicing this Bhakti Yoga, you are becoming purer in your consciousness, your habits and everything. And you are experiencing happiness with every aspect of practice you are going through. That is the practical demonstration of this. Yoga means controlling the senses, and Bhakti Yoga means purifying the senses. This is the understanding. Yoga Indriya Samyama, whereas Bhakti Yoga means you have purified your senses. Not only your purification of senses means controlling also included in that. Your senses are only used for Krishna's service. That is called Bhakti Yoga. When the senses are purified, they are automatically also controlled. You cannot stop the activities of the senses by artificial means. Just trying to control them in your own way, that is called artificial means. You cannot stop the activities of senses. Krishna consciousness, what is happening? We are dovetailing. If you purify the senses, not only are they kept back from rubbish engagement, but also they become positively engaged in transcendental service of the Lord. The important principle Lord Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita. He says that right now, our senses are engaged in many material activities. So they have got some taste towards those activities. We're experiencing some taste, rasa. So whereas when you start engaging your senses in Krishna service, you taste Krishna prasada, you chant Hare Krishna, you associate with devotees, this rasa is a higher taste, higher rasa. You get a different, better engagement. Just like a small kid who is playing with some toys at one age. When he grows up, he is no more interested to play with toys. He's become busy with something else. Similarly, when our consciousness is at a lower stage, we are busy in sense gratification, like how animals are busy in sense gratification. But when our consciousness is elevated, we no more want to take any pleasure in the sense gratification. We are busy with Krishna's service. That is giving us higher spiritual happiness. Whereas in the material plane, we want to experience the very base type of a happiness which every other animal is enjoying. So Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says, is not a manufactured process by any mental speculation. Rather, it is the authorized process as described in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna consciousness basically means, Krishna explains, that when we think in Krishna, Manmana, when we chant in Krishna, become devotee, Mad Bhakta, then when we live in Krishna, then to eat in Krishna, Madhyaji, talk in Krishna, hope in Krishna, sustain in Krishna. Basically, your whole way of action should be in such a way that it is only Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Talking, eating, hoping, living. Right now we are living in our own world, a temporary, world of drama we have created around us, in our minds. So we have to change that temporary drama world to realistic world of Krishna, which actually all of us belong to. Think of Krishna, chant Krishna, live in Krishna, eat in Krishna, which means eat only prasada, talk about Krishna, hoping in Krishna, sustain in Krishna. Then Krishna says, we return to Krishna without any doubt. Krishna shows this in Bhagavad Gita repeatedly. And this is the substance of Krishna consciousness. This is how you can connect yourself to superconsciousness. So with this, we conclude today's session on this topic called superconsciousness. If any questions, any comments, you can ask now. And other online viewers can write your comments in the comment box. We'll respond to your questions appropriately. If no questions, we will close now.